Good morning, St. Paul's. I am in Charleston on a little R&R and coming to you this morning and thinking about the passage from Genesis and wrestling, Jacob wrestling. And it really is a pretty good metaphor for how we face life, the things that we do, and wrestling with our vocations or any number of decisions. And I've got 4 daughters. I've watched them wrestle with finding out who they are and growing up, and I've wrestled with how do I be a good parent to them. How do I, if you think about wrestling, it's always looking at what's in front of you and trying to figure out how can I work this to my advantage. What's going to be the best option for me? If you watch people wrestle, and I think we do that. How do I do this to be the best parent, the best spouse? But I think it goes back in many respects to that question of trying to figure out who we are. Like I see my daughters. I think we do that through our entire lives. And interestingly, in this passage, Jacob, his name means deceiver. And he's trying to figure out who he is. And he's wrestling with God. And I think we do wrestle with God. Even those who don't want to acknowledge God wrestle with him. They're busy trying to take Christ out of Christmas, or take prayer out of schools, or remove the 10 Commandments from courthouses. We've wrestled with God our entire lives. And so we wrestle to try to figure out, who am I? Who am I supposed to become? And Jacob finds himself here, and he's known as the deceiver, right? The grabber, which is what his name means. And it's interesting, when he's wrestling, he says, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. We want blessing from God. And so the personification of God in this, the man says, okay, I'm going to change your name to Israel, which means wrestle with God, or to cling tightly to God. Well, I think one of the things when we wrestle, we're looking for these advantages because we want certainty. We want things that we can count on in our lives. But life isn't like that, is it? So even in the wrestling, our wrestling with God, the one thing that God will give us as a certainty is his character. That he's good and he loves us and he's for us. But life is ours to live and figure out. And we wrestle with all of these different questions. And that's what this story of Jacob is about. Wrestling with who he is. Who am I? Who am I in God's sight? Who am I among other people? And the blessing is his point of reference changes from his name being one of deception, or a grabber taking what he wants by force, to one who clings closely and tightly to God. And of course, that is what Christ wants our reference point to be as well. One where, when we're facing all the questions of life daily, hourly sometimes, and wrestling with who am I, how do I handle this, that our reference point is one where we cling tightly to God. And his character then says what? That in that clinging, he's going to give us a place of rest, which you might can see this pool behind me. It's been a nice place of rest for me for a number of days here. So I'll leave that with you today. The wrestling that we do to find out who we are in God's sight, who we are with one another, for ourselves. But in that, in facing all of those options, how do I approach this situation? Our reference point is one where we know God is for us and wants us to cling tightly to him. Peace.